This is Kim Meyer, host of Choose to Rise. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for joining the Confessions of a Military Spouse podcast. We are your hosts, Jenna Burt and Candace Gomez. Jenna is a military spouse of 10 years, a mom, a registered and certified dental assistant, and a certified phlebotomist. And Candace is an active duty military member of 17 years, a military spouse of 13 years, a mom, and a student. Again, we just want to say thank you for being here with us today, and we hope you enjoy all of the things that are happening here at this podcast. And as always, we highly encourage you to share our episodes. We also appreciate any and all feedback. So if you would like to leave us some feedback, please feel free to email us at confessionsofamilspouse@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Confessions of a Milspouse or at publichousemedia.org. So today I'm super excited because we're going to do basically an Ask Candace episode. And I know I have a ton of questions for her. I've had other people message me questions for her. So let's go ahead and get started. Candace, are you ready for this?
I don't know. I'm prepared for really anything, so let's see what we can do.
Okay, well, first and foremost, let's see, do you feel like an outsider as a military spouse since you are active duty as well?
Yeah, I think we're definitely in our own category. So it's often difficult to build relationships with other spouses because you're active duty. I often find that I relate more to the active duty service member, which makes some people really uneasy because I am a woman. So yeah, I mean, it definitely can be kind of alienating feeling, like, if that makes sense. It just feels like it's hard sometimes to fit in with all the male counterparts that you have, and they don't want to invite the woman they work with to go, I don't know, fishing. I'm not really into that, so I wouldn't, but that's exactly like they go golfing on the weekends, right. They go fishing on the weekends. I don't do that kind of thing. I'm a mom, also I'm a wife. And so I don't do those kinds of things. So I don't get invited to those things, but then it's also strange because, I wear the uniform. I go to work every day. I work with their husbands. I work with their wives. I don't socialize in that manner with them outside of that. But, also for me, like, mandatory fun is kind of work for me because I'm in the logistics field, right? So I work those events. My Marines work those events. So it's not like a leisurely time to kind of socialize. So yeah, it is a little alienating, and we're kind of our own little community, always super busy, right? Always having some other kind of priority. So it does feel a little lonesome from time to time, and moving from place to place definitely takes a longer time to build those relationships for sure.
You brought up some really great points that I want to kind of circle back and hit. The one that you said that really stuck out to me that I feel like a lot of people struggle with is you being a female and working with the male spouse, or the male species, I guess. And, them other, I guess, wives or spouses feeling uncomfortable with the fact that you're a female in this role with a bunch of males, and how do you balance that? Because I'm sure that you have male friends, and obviously you're married, you have a husband. So how, do you balance that?
Yeah, it's hard. I'm not sure I've quite mastered it yet. But it's gotten easier, and honestly, it's gotten better. When I first came in a long time ago, I could not have imagined ever. Yeah,
She's
right.
Like eons ago.
Yeah, I would have never imagined being friends with the spouse of another Marine. So, now that's different. It's a little different now. And, I kind of have, some friends that are spouses. But I mean, I think like any other military spouse, it's hard to maintain friendships, meaningful friendships. It's hard to build those relationships and those friendships. And I just have a little added extra kind of bump in the road I got to get over with some people, And I can tell now that I've done this for so long and I've been around this environment for so long, I can tell when a spouse is uncomfortable with me around, and I can tell when I'm say the male spouses, that's just what I'm typically used to being around. But like when the male, the husband situation, the male spouse is the active duty member, I can tell when they're uncomfortable with me being around their spouse, right? I can tell. So I don't know. I just try to read those relationships and, try to respect those relationships and, where they're going, where they're leading with something. So if someone isn't as open with like, oh, my wife is doing such and such, or my spouse is doing such and such, I just kind of go, okay, well, whatever, I've got other things to keep myself occupied. I try not to lean into something too much if I feel like it's not well received by other people in that same situation. So after a while, I kind of learned, how to read that from people. And it's gotten significantly better. I don't know if it's just because everyone I'm around's gotten older and, we're not dealing with a bunch of younger people who are figuring out life and figuring out how things work and how to be married and how to be comfortable in those situations. I'm older. I spend time around people my age. So of course we're all a little more solidified in our relationships and what those things mean. And, not so easily, bothered by some stuff. So I found ways around it. And there's like a small, active duty to active duty community, and we tend to find each other. So we kind of, there's quite a few of those around the area that my husband and I do spend time with and socialize with. It just makes it easier. We can all relate to literally almost everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you made a really good point. Like, because as I'm sitting here thinking about it, I know when Dustin and I first got together, like I would have been super uncomfortable with the fact that there was a female Marine around him all the time, especially if he wanted to hang out with her on the weekend. Like that would not have been okay. But like you said, the older I've gotten and the more solidified we've gotten in our relationship, it doesn't bother me now. And I try to lean into it, and I try to, I wouldn't necessarily say become friends, but I try not to let it bother me because, I know where he and I are at in our relationship. And I think I think age and just maturing and growing up, I think that does play a huge part in that.
Yeah, for sure. It's gotten much better, but it is still hard. It is still hard. Mm-hmm.
I can, I work in a mostly female predominant field of work. So for me, I don't have that struggle. And I will say it would be very, very different for me if we ever, let's say, had a male dental assistant come in, because that's somebody, like you guys have to work super close with the people that you work with. Same with us. We have to work super close with the people that we work with. So it would definitely be very different and a challenge if I ever had a male dental assistant that was working directly with me.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Next question. I'm literally reading a list here. So, you and your husband, which we talked about, are both active duty members, and everybody should be aware now of the fact that my husband is active duty and I work full time. Mm-hmm. And we touched a little bit about it in our last episode about some of the similarities, especially, being considered a essential person during this pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I would like to know what have been some of the struggles that you guys have encountered with you and your husband both being dual working that maybe, civilian working spouses might run into, and what has helped to mitigate those struggles, and what advice and experience can you give spouses on all of that?
Oh, there's a lot to unpack there.
I know.
I think for me personally, the biggest challenge is feeling like there's not enough of me to go around. And what I mean is, I'm a leader. I have Marines I'm responsible for. I have a job I'm responsible for. And I have multiple responsibilities. So I have what we call collateral duties. I have a primary duty, and then I have one, three or not primary, sorry, one primary, four collateral duties, which means I'm responsible for four other programs in my unit. Um, and so between home and kids and my primary duty, the four collateral duties, school, all of these things, I just often feel like there's not enough of me to go around. And so when all of this started and everybody kind of, you know, peeled back and people weren't working and we got designated as essential workers at our command, we had to have letters signed by both our commands to submit to the daycare here on base to have our youngest continue to go to the CDC. So when that happened, we kind of said, well, there's no stopping work. We're going to be here every single day. We've got to figure out how this is going to work. So, the service, DOD, the armed forces, across the board have figured out, I don't know, so many different ways. I don't know how they did it in such a short amount of time, but figured out all these different ways for us to continue working. And if we had to telework, they figured out how we were going to do that. So I am very lucky that I live legitimately a 5 to 8 minute drive from my driveway to my office. And so if I need to drop in, I can. There have been some days where I've teleworked. I'll be at home with the kids and then, they call me on my cell phone, or I stop into work for 15 minutes to do something on the computer and come back home. And so when things have been really busy, we've kind of worked out a schedule. We know that, my husband has to be at work Mondays. I don't have as much going on Mondays. So primary, if someone has to miss because the kids can't be at school, the kids are sick, or, our youngest classroom, one of the teachers got COVID. They shut that classroom down for 14 days. He went to work on Monday. I stayed home. Tuesday mornings, I have meetings. He was home Tuesday morning. I went to my meetings, came home when those were done. Wednesdays was a toss-up, who needed to be at work, who didn't. Thursday afternoon, I have another extremely important meeting I have to be at. He took the baby. I went to work. So we just kind of juggled back and forth. And our commands were very receptive to that. They understand the situation. And so we've been lucky there. But I have had commands in the past outside of this time frame go, well, what does she do if she has to be here and her husband has to be at work? And I've had leaders that I directly work for go, then she doesn't come.
Yeah.
Or then he doesn't go. It just is what it is. And some leaders are receptive to that and some aren't. What I can say is my advice would be, if you're working or you're a dual active duty spouse, you need to be honest about what you can and cannot do. When you overcommit to doing too much and then you fall short of doing that, it's not going to look good for you. So one of the things we were very clear about is, my husband has a meeting this day. I will telework. Call me on my cell phone if you need me. And then you have to be available. If you're teleworking, you have to actually be able to accomplish the things you need to accomplish. We've had some people telework that just think they're off for a day.
Yes.
And we have someone that works in my office right now. His daughter has COVID. And so he's home teleworking, and I can message him and call him at any time during working hours, and he answers and calls immediately. He does all of our facilities requests. So I say, hey, I need you to call this section. Here's the name and phone number. Call them. They have a work request that needs to get submitted. And within 15 minutes, he's messaged me back and says, taken care of, and sends me a picture of the completed request that he's put in. That's teleworking. And when you're doing that kind of work, commands are much more receptive to that. So that would be my advice, right? You got to be open about what you need and what you can and can't do. And don't overcommit to doing something you may or may not be able to fulfill. Because as soon as you can't fulfill that, they're going to think you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, even though you're really pushing yourself to the max. They just don't know that.
That is fantastic advice. And it's so true, especially about the overcommitting part. And I feel like sometimes that's something that I struggle with. I have a really hard time saying no. um, and so I feel like that is something that I struggle with. And that kind of leads me into my next question of how do you balance work and family life? Because something that I struggle with is the guilt that I feel because I work full time. And I feel like most days I come home, I cook dinner, I do the dishes, Ella gets a bath, and then it's bedtime. And it's like, I don't really feel like I get to spend quality time with her. So, what do you do? I mean, I know you guys are in the same situation. So, and obviously your kids have extracurricular activities as well. So, how do you
Hmm.
balance all of that?
You know, I've spent a long time figuring that out. I have guilt, right? I have mom guilt, but I also have guilt as a leader. I have Marines
Mm,
that work under my charge, and I feel guilty when I have to leave at 1600 and they're there for an extra 30 minutes because
yes.
I have to go pick my kids up. I feel guilty, but what I've learned to do is merge the two enough so that there's a separation, but they come together. And what I mean by that is when my children have birthday parties, my whole office comes to those. They're invited to my home. They're invited to celebrate that with my children. When I need to go into work, when I'm teleworking, my children come with me. And they love seeing the Marines and spending time with them. Swear on my life, my kids probably like my Marines more than me. I'm not joking. My oldest says to me, you know, two of my Marines came over for Thanksgiving. Their families are not really local, not drivable local, and so they came over for Thanksgiving. So I'm like, "Ah, spending Thanksgiving by yourself? Absolutely not. Come to my house." They come to my house for a whole afternoon and evening, have dinner around my table with me and my children and my family, and sit in my house and watch my TV. You know, those kinds of things. Play with my dogs. Um, so they come to those things, right? And we're building a relationship, um you know, probably of a lot more things than I've ever even really thought about, but we're building those relationships, and for me that's where I can just make up some of that time for my Marines to balance that family portion of it. You know, I try to make every second count that I can, and what I mean by that is when I pick my 7-year-old up from the youth center after school, at the end of the day, we have probably, I'd say a 5 minute, I've never timed it. I'd say a 5 minute drive home. It's not very far, maybe 2 miles. And so one of the things I ask her every day is, how was school? And what did you do today? And when she's not very receptive, as most kids are, and they say, it was,
I was going to say, come on. I know
yeah,
she doesn't answer that all the time.
she says, fine. What did you do
Yep.
today? Oh, we had math. I'm like, okay.
Same.
So yeah, so I've learned her schedule, and so enough to know that she has a different special class every day. So they have like STEM, PE, that kind of thing where it's not a
Hmm.
core subject. So my question always is, what was your special today? And she'll tell me, and I go, well, tell me what you did in PE today. And so it just makes the conversation in the car, and it's not overly invasive. It's just a conversation. But I've learned through listening to my 2-year-old that she knows that these conversations are happening. And I've learned that they're becoming useful because we're in the car. It's Sunday today while we're recording. And we're in the car driving to breakfast this morning. And my 2-year-old looks at my 7-year-old and goes, um, how was your day at school today? And my
Aw.
7-year-old goes, we didn't have school today.
Oh my
So
gosh.
it's a hard balance, you know, it's a hard balance, but I've tried to make those small moments count as much as I possibly can. And it really is about quality over quantity. When you're in a when you're all working and you're all going to school, and you know, my older daughter has dance and she's a Girl Scout and she was in a running club for a while that just ended, and you know, she has homework, and I'm that crazy mom who's like, you need to do more than just one sheet of math homework. Here's a second grade workbook with 800 pages on it. Work on that. I so I'm that crazy, person that wants my kids to do stuff like that. But in between all of that, we find balance, right? We find that the quality of time we're spending is better than the massive amounts of time. So, one of the things we do every single night, regardless of what time my kids go to bed, is we read, my soon to be 3-year-old, she reads 2 books every night. Doesn't matter how late it is, she won't go to bed without them. And then some nights when she doesn't want me to put her to bed, but my husband's not available yet, she'll sit on my lap and look at me and go, I want to tell you about my day at school. So,
Aww.
yeah, so that's kind of what we do. Right. And I totally believe quality over quantity for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, like you said, it's definitely, especially for families that have both parents working, it's definitely quality over quantity. And, that's something that Dustin and I have really talked about too, especially with him being, he's gone right now and his cell phone reception isn't the greatest. So
No.
he makes an effort when he knows Ella is going to be available to call so he can at least talk to her. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's like the highlight of her day. And even,
Mhm.
even if it's just, hi, daddy, like that just makes her day.
Yep. Yeah.
So, speaking of Dustin, this is a question that he asked me to ask you. And his question is, how do you handle a spouse who loves to buy a bunch of car parts or expensive things for a hobby?
Are our two husbands in cahoots with each other over this question or what?
Yes, I'm sure that they are. I am sure that they are.
I think it just comes down to laying out priorities, and discussing those openly, right? Is that a priority right now, or is this a priority right now? I mean, and car parts are expensive. A budget is always good, but it really just comes down to how important is that really compared to some of the other things you need, or some of the things your kid wants, or where are you willing to kind of give up for your spouse? That's oh, leave it to Dustin.
I know, right? I was like, I am totally going to ask this question too. Because I think he wants to know your answer so he can use it against me when he's trying to buy his car parts.
No, I think it's just priority, because my husband's the same way. He wants some things for his car that are expensive, and I'm like, well, we got to talk about it. We got to find the right time when that's good for us, and when you find the right deal and it's a good price, then we'll talk about it. He always says, oh, the other day my husband told me, well, I want to. Not the other day, a while ago, before Christmas, but he said, I want a new bumper for my truck. And I'm like, what's wrong with the bumper on your truck right now?
That's so me too. I'm like, what's wrong with it? Like, I don't understand.
But, and then after a while, I'll say, okay, well, how much are you looking to spend? And he'll tell me, and I'm like, okay, well, look, I'm not comfortable going over this. So he'll come back and look for something that's in that range that he likes, just to kind of bounce back and forth, especially when we're making, really expensive purchases. That's kind of how we handle kind of all of those, not just about car parts. So
yeah, no, I mean, that's really it's a silly question, but it's really great information for everybody, because one of the things that I feel like that happens to a lot of young military couples is they don't really understand communication. I mean, shit, Dustin and I are 11 years into this and we still struggle to communicate, but also they don't really understand money. And a lot of young Marines get themselves into so much trouble because they're not talking to their spouse and they don't know how to budget.
So I'm almost positive this spans for all services, though I cannot be 100% sure, but I know the Marine Corps offers, there's a command representative at each unit who's a financial specialist or advisor or something or other. I don't know, command financial something. And they can help with things like that. And there are other services that can help with stuff like that for active duty members. And it's free. It's totally free.
Yeah.
Yep. So definitely something to look into.
I know the Navy Marine Corps Relief Society will help with budgeting.
Yes.
And I also know they help with like personal loans up to a certain amount, like in emergency situations.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, next question. We talked about, extracurriculars with the kids and your home life and everything like that. But one of the things that Dustin and I are really starting to learn is, everything can't be focused around Ella and everything else that we have going on. We have to focus on ourselves. So, given the fact that you have so much going on, what do you do to keep your relationship healthy with your husband?
Yeah, welcome to the struggle we've been trying to master. Again, I'm going to fall back to quality over quantity. One of the things we talked about not too long ago was, you know, um, dinner time, right? One of us
Yeah.
is cooking, one of us is, what is the other one doing? Okay, well, come stand in the kitchen and have a conversation. We save washing dishes and feeding the dogs until after the kids are in bed, and we're in the kitchen doing that together, often listening to some news or discussing things that have happened throughout the day. Drive homes, we talk on the phone when his signal is good driving home, uh and it aligns, so those are some, again, quality over quantity, right? Try to stay focused on that and put that effort in, even in small spaces where it fits. But yeah, that's hard to master, keeping that balance. It's easy for your relationship to fall to the wayside and it not be, it not be a priority. And a lot of maintaining that relationship is maintaining yourself, and
Yeah.
finding the things that are important to you to provide yourself some self-care, because when you don't take care of yourself, you can't be completely in a relationship with someone where you're open and honest and putting in the effort that they probably need from you if you're not taking care of yourself. And the same's true for your kids. But yeah, again, I mean, if I fall back to quality over quantity, honestly, find those little things, find those little things that make that difference and stick to them.
Yeah. I mean, I would have never thought about washing dishes because I'm like, we have a thing where whoever cooks does the dishes, and it's usually immediately after dinner, and everybody's kind of gone their own way. But I guess the way we kind of get some of our time in is folding laundry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He
Yep.
absolutely hates doing laundry, and he usually doesn't do it. Like, that's not his thing. I've known that. We have it worked out. But a lot of times when I'm in there folding the laundry, I'll tell him, like, hey, come in here. Let's talk. Like, just be in my presence. Sometimes I don't
Yeah.
want you to talk. Just be in my
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
just be in my presence. And yeah, like you said, definitely quality over quantity, especially given everything, that everybody has going on in their lives.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's funny, we're the same way with laundry. I don't I don't match socks and I don't fold green uniform shirts. So when when my husband's gone, there's a whole lot of unmatched socks and green shirts that need to be folded. I'll fold a towel though.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Oh, I love it. And isn't it funny how everybody has like their things?
Mhm.
All
Yes.
right. Last question. I could probably go on for hours and
Oh, I'm
hours
sure.
to be 100% honest, but I don't think our listeners want to listen to that. So, last question, and maybe this is like opening Pandora's box a little bit. I've kept it no secret about my relationship with TRICARE and how much of a love-hate it is. Obviously, you and your husband, because you're active duty, have to receive care through the military, and that's a
Yep.
subject that we can talk about another time because I know there's a lot to say about that. But what is your experience with TRICARE for your kids?
It's been good, honestly. It's really been good. We haven't had a whole lot of issues there. The frustrating part for us is balancing that schedule, like, oh, the doctor's not open on the weekend. Well, I have all these
Right.
meetings and we're in the field. One of us isn't here. So that's our biggest challenge in terms of I mean, we still get it done, but we haven't had a lot of issues with our kids with TRICARE. I have, for myself. But
Say
no, I
no
think,
more.
yeah, no, we've had good experiences. We've had some pretty good pediatricians. I wish the girls could get seen here on base right now, but we're on Camp Lejeune and the Naval Hospital here is just overwhelmed. They couldn't take anybody on when we got here. So we see a provider out in town for them, a pediatrician in town for them, which is fine. We've almost always done that, except for when we were when we were serving overseas, when you don't really have a choice.
Right.
But yeah, we've always seen a off base civilian pediatrician provider. We've never had any issues. And what's even better now is that a lot of the local pediatricians can send the prescriptions to the on-base hospital to be filled, which used to be a pain in the butt for me to get that taken care of because I just wanted to pick up a prescription on my drive home from work. I didn't want to have to come home and change and then go down to the drugstore to get a prescription after, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah, so that's gotten better. For our kids, no issues. For me, that's a little bit of a different story. I've had some, run-ins of some issues with them, but for the most part, overall experience has been a positive one, especially with the kids, for sure.
That's good. And I would have to agree. Like with Ella, I haven't had any issues. I will say, so I had TRICARE Prime since Dustin and I had gotten married. And just this year, I decided to switch to TRICARE Select or Standard or whatever the hell it is now. Simply because with all of my stuff going on with my B12 and whatever else is going on, I was having to get referral after referral after referral. And it's like, you get a referral and then it's weeks and then you have to get an appointment. And then for me, like, okay, it was basically ruling things out. So I had to go see a rheumatologist and then I had to see a sleep doctor and now I need to see a gastroenterologist. And it was just the constant waiting of having to get this referral. And then, okay, well, they didn't put the referral in. And so now I have to call back to Naval Hospital. So
to be fair, that's not just TRICARE. That's every doctor. Like, I will call, like, the doctors in our units will be like, I'm going to put that referral. And then I call 3 days later and I'm like, I got to make an appointment for this referral. They're like, there's no referral in for you. I'm like,
oh, God.
So,
Great.
Not sure that is specific to TRICARE.
Well, I guess we'll see, because the thing that I liked the most about TRICARE Select is that you don't have to have a referral to see a specialist.
I wish I could get on that train as active duty person.
Yeah.
We don't have that option. When I was, this could be a whole lot of thing maybe for another time, but when I was looking to get pregnant with my older daughter, we'd had some issues before. I talked to someone who represented TRICARE that came and talked, and I said, well, what do I got to do to be seen by an OBGYN off the installation? And she said, good luck, because if you don't do it without a referral and they just choose to see you and someone finds out, they can lose their medical license. So we don't get that option unless we have a referral. And for me to get an off-base referral, I not only have to go through my unit doctor and then to the hospital, but then the hospital has to agree that they can't do whatever they want to do there at the hospital. Then I can get a referral out in town. And I only have an expeditious process if they label it like urgent or put it in some specific category to get whatever it is I need done. So yeah, it's
wow.
Yeah. So we're there with you.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and that's crazy. That's even worse than what we have, because a lot of times, like for us as spouses, if the doctor on Naval can't treat it, when they put in a referral, it's generally for an outside provider.
Yeah.
It's not, we don't have to go through all of those. So you guys, I feel like, actually have it worse than we do.
And funny because I see ortho for my shoulder, but I do need to see ortho also for my back. But I haven't started the process to have ortho look at my back. So when I'm done having them look at my shoulder, I have to go back to my unit doctor and have our unit medical officer give me another referral specifically for them to look at my back. So they won't see me for multiple things at the same time.
Wow. Yeah, so
Well,
it's
that's
not
just
like
my
one of those
experience,
things
though. Yeah. Yep.
for us where like, okay, you've got this, this, and this going on and you need a referral to a specialist. Like they'll take care of it all at once.
No, because we have to have them put in for us. Like, recently I had to have some nerve testing done on my shoulder and my arm. And also, I see podiatry. I have like inserts for my boots and my shoes. And in my referrals, it specifically said authorized 1 exam, 2 follow-on appointments, and like I have to have splints for my feet. So, and authorized X number of splints. So my prescription in my referral specifically says I can get evaluated and seen this many times, and they can provide me this piece of equipment, and then that is it. Once I
Oh
exceed
my
that, I have to go back for a referral. Yeah.
that is wild. That is just crazy.
Yeah.
It's not a wonder to me why so many people are just don't want to mess with medical.
Yeah. It's worth it though. I mean, I encourage,
Dustin.
yes. Well, I encourage the spouses too. So like any listeners that we have as spouses, encourage your active duty spouse to get seen, get these things taken care of. Even though it feels like a slow process, you have to talk to so many people because in the long run, that really is going to help when they, either they EAS, they end their service because they end their contract or they retire. Those things are going to make a difference. And the sooner they get the care they need for whatever the issue is they're having, the sooner it can get resolved or they can find a way to better deal with it and a better way to live with that issue. And oftentimes we wait and we're like, this process takes forever. It does, but it doesn't necessarily speed up when you're not active duty either. Maybe there's one less step, but that doesn't make it faster. And
Right.
the best time to deal with the problem is when it starts.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And I think that's great advice. So, Dustin Burt, if you're listening to this, go see the doctor. Okay, thanks. Oh God. Well, he hurt his finger when he was at WTI and
Mhm.
had it looked at whenever he was there. And they told him to follow up whenever he came back. But of course, he's like making the I'm too busy excuse and
Yep.
it's going to take too long, blah, blah, blah. So this is your reminder.
Yes, and I really encourage all listening spouses to get your spouse to do those follow-ups and to get that care that they need because they're not going to do it. And honestly, as a leader, I want my Marines to be healthy and I want them to be combat ready. And I want them, just to overall really be healthy and fit. But I'm not their mom. And, male active duty members are not their dads. And we're not going to baby them and say, well, you didn't do a follow up. If they don't do the follow up, we're going to move on.
Yeah.
So as the spouse, I really encourage you to say like, no, you need to go back, encourage them to go back and do it because not that I don't care if my Marines have an issue, but I'm not your mom. I'm not going to kind of cradle to that. I'm not going to baby you through a process. And if you have something wrong with you, you need to do that self-care and take yourself to get it checked out and follow up on. It's just a life lesson, they got to learn.
Yes.
And so as a leader, we're just not going to hold their hand, but definitely as the spouse, I definitely encourage, listeners and spouses to stay on top of that, encourage them to go back and do those follow-ups because it's only going to help them out in the long run. And you.
Yes. Right? Us too.
How many times have you had to listen to Dustin's, oh, my finger hurts? And you're like, if you would just follow up.
Oh my gosh. So many times. So many times. And I'm like the complete opposite. I'm like, okay, if something's bothering me, like I'm not going to live like this. So I'm going to go to the doctor and I'm going to get it taken care of. But
yeah, we don't do that.
no, not at all. Well, thank you for subjecting yourself to all of these questions. There is a lot of valuable information in these questions, though, and I think our listeners are really going to benefit from hearing it. I definitely want to do another episode like this later on down the road.
Yeah.
So prepare.
Sure. I mean, whatever questions, and if people that are listening don't want to wait, by all means, send us a message and Jenna and I will answer those as best as we can, especially if there's something you want from this perspective, kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about, by all means, let us know if you don't want to wait.
Yes, absolutely. We're always open to hear questions and feedback and anything else. So please let us know. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast listening platform so you never miss an episode.